Hello, I'm Dr. Dana Haggard, Professor of Management and curator of this video on self-awareness. I hope you find the collection of information I have assembled to be useful and interesting. Let's get started. Self-awareness can be described in many ways, and here are a few examples. Self-awareness is basically having a realistic rather than idealistic understanding of all aspects of oneself. In this illustration, you see the fish looking back at its reflection, and the image is pretty clear. The cat, on the other hand, is seeing an idealized version of himself rather than reality. So why is self-awareness important? Research has repeatedly shown that people who are more self-aware are healthier, perform better in managerial and leadership roles, and are generally more productive at work. You have to know something about yourself in order to answer that commonly asked interview question, what's your biggest weakness? Or the equally popular question, what is your biggest strength? People who truly know the answer to those questions are in a better position to achieve their goals than are people who struggle with an honest answer. According to Dr. Tasha Eurich, there are two types of self-awareness, internal and external. One can be high or low on one or the other or both. These definitions are taken from her Harvard Business Review article called What Self-Awareness Really Is and How to Cultivate It. You can find a link to her article and to her TED Talk on the Sources and Resources slide at the end of this presentation. Internal self-awareness represents how clearly we see our values, passions, aspirations, fit with our environment, reactions, and impact on others. We found that internal self-awareness is associated with higher job and relationship satisfaction, personal and social control, and happiness. It is negatively related to anxiety, stress, and depression. On the other hand, external self-awareness is understanding how others view us in terms of those same factors listed at the side. Dr. Eurich's research shows that people who know how others see them are more skilled at showing empathy and taking others' perspectives. For leaders who see themselves as their employees do, their employees tend to have a better relationship with them, feel more satisfied with them, and see them as generally more effective. So, if self-awareness has so many positive associations, why wouldn't everyone want to be more self-aware? Well, for starters, most people already think they are self-aware. Even though most people believe they are self-aware, only 10 to 15% of the people Dr. Eurich studied actually fit the criteria. The reason people prefer to stay ignorant about themselves is that acquiring self-knowledge requires a willingness to examine our attitudes, behaviors, and skills. It requires a willingness to accept both positive and negative information about ourselves. Most people enjoy hearing positive information about their behavior, but aren't so pleased to hear about how their behavior could use for improvement, or how someone disagrees with their value set. The need for self-awareness and the corresponding desire to protect our self-esteem from the self-knowledge required to develop self-awareness is called the enigma of self-awareness. And that brings us to the sensitive line. The sensitive line is the point at which individuals become defensive or protective when encountering information about themselves that is inconsistent with their self-concept or when encountering pressure to alter their behavior. The defensive response is called the threat rigidity response. People become rigid psychologically and emotionally when their sensitive lines get crossed. You can usually tell when a person is experiencing a threat rigidity response by their body language as well as their tone of voice. For example, instead of responding with a smile and a sincere word of gratitude for the information, the person responds by frowning and verbalizing in defense. As we mentioned earlier, research has shown a significant discrepancy between the number of people who think they are self-aware and the number of people who actually are self-aware. This might lead to the question, well, how is self-awareness measured? Measuring self-awareness requires feedback from others about oneself, and the usual way this is done is through a survey or questionnaire. A person rates themselves on the survey items and asks someone else to rate them on the same items. The comparison of the ratings show where the focal person and the other rater agree and disagree. You'll notice that there are links here on this slide. These links will take you to just some examples of the many different ways that self-awareness is measured. In addition to requiring feedback from others, self-awareness requires that you are willing to make yourself the focus of your attention. Here are some ways you can help reduce your sensitivity to new information about yourself and shift your sensitive line so you become less defensive when receiving that information. First, seek information about yourself that is verifiable against an objective standard. The fact that there is an objective standard to be compared to, rather than another person, makes the information more acceptable because it seems less like an opinion. It also helps you to see the validity of the feedback. For example, taking an established skills inventory test that has been used widely and validated by research. There are examples of these on the previous slide, and you will see many more examples through this course. Being in control of what feedback we receive and when and how much of it we receive also makes it less threatening and easier for us to internalize. Relatedly, when the timing of feedback is predictable, we are less threatened by it than when the feedback comes at an unexpected time or place. Inherent in soliciting feedback is the need for self-disclosure. In order for others to provide useful feedback to you, they have to know something about you in the first place. It will be hard for them to evaluate your behavior accurately unless you share the reasons for your behavior. Self-disclosure requires trust and a willingness to be vulnerable. It can be uncomfortable, but can also be very beneficial. Of course, as with everything in life, it's important to realize that too much can be just as bad or worse than too little. Excessive self-disclosure or disclosure of highly personal information can be damaging to your personal and professional relationships. So be careful what you choose to share. It is also the case that others might not be accurate in their assessment of you because they lack information, and that can't be resolved unless you are willing to talk about it. In the process of learning about yourself, you also learn more about others. The more you understand your uniqueness as an individual, the more you become equipped to manage yourself. And in addition, knowing yourself will help you to diagnose, value, and understand the differences in other people. Here are some questions to think about to start you on your road to self-awareness. Take a moment to think about each of these and see how what you have learned in this lecture could be applied to this situation. If you have any questions about the information in this video, please post them in the appropriate discussion forum and thread on Blackboard. Chances are, if you have a question, another student has that question too. If you're intellectually curious and would like to learn more, stay tuned to see the sources and additional resources for this video. When it comes to what might be covered on the exam, I will not be expecting you to have visited all of the links. I will just hold you responsible for the information that was contained in this video. Thanks for listening.